So hello, my name is Kay, and our research was on how cultural values protect against anxiety-related disorders in the face of ethnic discrimination for Latinx. So we've known in previous literature that discrimination is a potent risk factor for the development of anxiety in Latinx populations. However, we know less about the moderating role of cultural values. Specifically, this has been presented as both risk and protective factors in previous literature, which was why we were interested in whether it would be beneficial or harmful. So although it can sometimes be beneficial, it can sometimes be harmful due to the fact that there can be an increased vulnerability to cognitive dissonance caused by the conflict between cultural pride and ethnic discrimination that they're facing. Traditional Latinx cultural values, including familismo, which is familism, and that includes subscales like familism reference, support, and obligation, along with other cultural values like respeto, which is religion, and religiosity, well, respeto, which is respect, sorry, and religiosity have demonstrated protective effects against anxiety in Latinx college students. However, we wanted to investigate more into how these protective or risk factors apply to Latinx adults, specifically assuming parent roles, because we were interested in how that shifted in the case of feminism. And so the study seeks to characterize the interactive effect of ethnic discrimination and Mexican American cultural values on anxiety severity in Latinx parents. So we used three different measures: ethnic discrimination, a sample of 183 predominantly Mexican origin parents completed the brief perceived ethnic discrimination questionnaire, which assessed their lifetime exposure to ethnic discrimination. And then parents also reported on their cultural values through the Mexican American Cultural Values Scale. And this scale assessed their endorsement of cultural values broadly through a total score, as well as through subscales of specific cultural values, including familism referent, for example. And familism referent is essentially how you live up to your family's expectations. So an example of an item would be, it is important to work hard and do one's best because this work reflects on the family. And additionally, there were other subscales like religiosity, and an example item would be, it is important to thank God every day for all one has. And then we also assessed parental anxiety, and parent anxiety symptoms were also measured through the screen for adult anxiety-related disorders. So this is the correlation table for the three variables that we were focused on, and we actually found significant positive correlations for all three of the variables. So ethnic discrimination was positively correlated with high levels of cultural values, and additionally, higher discrimination was also linked with higher anxiety. And the final correlation was probably the most interesting, was that high levels of cultural values were linked with high levels of anxiety. And this seems kind of counterintuitive, but it makes sense in a way because all three of these variables are linked in one way or another. So for the results, we found a main effect of discrimination on anxiety, and additionally, greater total endorsement of cultural values moderated this association, such that discrimination positively predicted anxiety at low and mean levels of cultural values, but not high levels of cultural values. And what this means is that parents who had a greater endorsement of cultural values, their positive relationship of discrimination and anxiety was less severe. And we can see that on this graph. The bottom line is the high levels of cultural values. It's a bit hard to see, and you can see that the positive relationship is not as steep or intense as the other levels of cultural values. And we also probed each individual subscale, and we found that among the 7 subscales, we found that familism referent and religiosity specifically were the most protective, considering that among all of the subscales, these were the ones that we found to be significant. And so the current findings suggest that cultural values may indeed protect against the harmful effects of ethnic discrimination in Latinx parents. And specifically within these broader cultural values, familism referent and religion seem to be what is driving these protective outcomes. And ongoing work will hopefully examine how parental socialization of these cultural values in their children might attenuate anxiety or ethnic discrimination-related anxiety in Latina youth. So these are my references, and then special thank you to my mentor, Jordan, and additionally Dr. Michalska and the Kind Lab, and of course our participating families who provided with all this beautiful data. Sorry, I don't have a cute question slide, but any questions?
Thank you for a very interesting presentation. I was wondering about the cultural values, the two that you found that were significant, and why do you think those two, what do you think it is about those two cultural values that made them protective in the context of discrimination?
Something interesting I noticed was that in our first presentation, I noticed that I think family support and faith was also a protective factor against negative outcomes. if he's here. So yeah, I think in Latinx population specifically, I think in previous literature it's been found that their family ties and community ties are really important and they're really close knit. And so I think that support system is really important for the protection against anxiety and other negative mental health outcomes. So I think that could be a part of it.
You had moms and dads in the sample, right?
Yes, we did, but they were primarily mothers.
Did you look at differences between moms and dads? I don't remember.
We did not look into gender, but that would be very interesting to look at. I will investigate into that if you
Yeah,
want me to.
yeah, I'm not sure we'll find it because I think we have other, so Nancy's project looks at the kids and she's not finding differences there between moms and dads effect on kids. But I wonder, do you think there might be differences in the kinds of things that dads talk about versus moms talk about? Because these are all girls, right? They're all daughters.
There could be potentially differences because I think I remember in previous literature that religion is more helpful or it's more prioritized in females than males. So there might be a difference in the way religiosity plays a role as a moderating role between discrimination and anxiety. Maybe it's not as helpful or maybe it's not as highly endorsed, for example.
Do you think the level of anxiety would be different between genders?
I think generally women are higher in anxiety disorders and overall mental health outcomes, so that might be a potential factor, but I could look into that. That's an interesting question. So looking at the participants, that they were daughters, right? But we were assessing parent reports, so parents were answering the surveys.
Okay, so did you look into what their job status or like what kind of job fields they were in and how that correlated with if they were putting more like cultural values or if they were having more anxiety just within the family because of that?
Yes, I believe we do have that.
We do have that. That's a
We
great
do
question.
have that
That's a
data,
great
but
question.
I didn't actually do analysis for those kind of variables, but that's a very interesting question. I could definitely look into that.
Type of job and then income and things like that. That's a great question.
Yeah. I was interested in like socioeconomic status and like how that may come into play, but there was just a lot of variables and stuff. But,
Yeah, we have the data. That's a great
that
question.
would be
Yeah.
good to look into. Thank you.
Sorry, did you look at the environment like those household family like rested in because some place their social value probably is not as fit into the the residue food they live in. Does that affect that range in a way? Because you say like high social value places and so lower anxiety, but does that correlate to the like environmental issue too?
Sorry, what was the last part? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that.
So let me say kind of it's just some part of your social value might not fit into the environment you rested in. And that way, could it cause like opposite effects?
Oh yes, that was what I was talking about in the beginning. There could be some cognitive dissonance caused by the conflict between your cultural pride and your ethnic discrimination, and so sometimes there could be negative outcomes caused by these different cultural values. So in previous literature, it's been recognized as both risk and protective factors, which is why I was also especially interested in which one it would be. And I think specifically in Latinx populations, this seems to be a pattern because I also found a previous study with similar results, but maybe in different populations it could be different.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is when you're getting the data, did you specifically look into like the participants who respond to this, which side are they in, like are they living in the environment that's pro their value or like not really fit? Did you gather information about this?
Were these all families in Riverside?
Oh yes, generally Riverside area.
So probably fairly high levels of those values, I would guess, probably around here, given the population, yeah. Yeah.